Welcome back. This is Beyond the Box Score. I'm Dan Schneier, joined as always my co-host Jacob Gibbs. And Jacob, today we are diving deep into rookies. This is a little extension of our rookie work this preseason. Before we do that, I wanted to ask you, I know you. You're the type that just grinds down preseason film like it's candy in some degree to a baby or candy to a kid. I don't even know where I was going with that. From all the preseason tape you watched, who was the one rookie that you expected to be less high on, and then you watched his tape and you were like, wait a second, I see something here?
It's got to be Ollie Gordon. The cat's out of the bag at this point. We as a community have gotten real sick with it, where like there's a huge demand for the preseason content. And at this point, we're through the preseason and everybody knows about Ollie Gordon. Everybody knows about Isaac Tesla, like they're not secrets anymore, but it would definitely be Gordon if we're talking about running backs.
It's so funny with Gordon. I watched a ton of his tape because the Giants were bringing him in for a preseason visit. I think I mentioned it before. And that 2023 tape, Jacob, I know it wasn't the same in 2024, but that 2023 tape, he was a lead back workhorse for them. So I do feel like if things fall right for him from an injury standpoint and the Dolphins can get that offensive line back on track and that offense back on track, it's like a league winning type last round pick. So this is exactly what we're doing today's show for. We're doing today's show for those of you who are in deeper leagues or medium-sized leagues, get to the final rounds of your draft. You're looking through that board on a snake draft. And you're like, I don't really know or care about any of these names. What are we down to here? Like, who are these guys? We have the guys for you. We have the players you want to target at the end of your drafts to give yourself the best chance of winning your league, because these are all upside-based picks. So, Jacob, without further ado, let's get into some of those rookies today. And we don't have we'll start maybe with rookies that are worth monitoring on today's show. So who's first on the list for you?
Yeah, it's more than just get these guys at the end of the draft. Just know these names.
Okay.
Even bookmark this show and come back to it or something. Like whatever you need to do, just know these names, because a lot of these players will get dropped. A lot of these players will not get drafted and will just be on the waiver wire. And you're just keeping an eye on them in case something happens, so that if an injury occurs in a backfield, you know about Jarquez Hunter. You're ready to roll, and you know how much to prioritize each of these players. So yeah, you and I like obsess over the rookies. Me especially this year, man. Like dug into all the analytics, watched all the college film. I know you watch a ton of college film as well, and then even like watching all of these players in preseason. It's basically an update on our rookie gym show that we did in June, and that was like we hit on some big ones there. With Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt and some of these players we uncovered. But now it's like, now we're through the preseason. We have all the training camp reports. We have a better feel for depth charts. Somebody like Trey Harris, who we were super excited for, is kind of blocked now. So just giving you guys an updated view of where we're at today. We're not going to talk about the top rookies. If you search rookie running back film thread or rookie wide receiver film thread with my name on Twitter, you will find a bunch of good stuff on basically every rookie. So if you do want to know more about the top rookies today, I guess one takeaway that I wanted to get from a top rookie, is, and this is somebody we talk about a lot, but not specifically really. Like we talk more about just like how great the runway has become for Emeka Egbuka, but not all that often do we talk about Emeka as a player. And I think part of that's because he's just like kind of boring, like you just watch him, he does a lot of stuff really, really well. He's just a really smooth, refined player. But one thing that I noticed this preseason with Egbuka was that they tested him out. The Buccaneers tested him out on a lot of deep routes and deep targets. And I do think that's relevant with this being his second year removed from tightrope surgery, that he could be more explosive than we saw last year. That's something that people bring up occasionally to me as another reason why Brock Bowers might like be even better in 2025, because he's 2 years removed from tightrope now. Bowers is. He and Egbuka actually got surgery the same time. It was October of 2023. So it's possible that we'll see like an even more explosive version of Egbuka, not just the slot bound stuff. I think that's going to be the role right away with Godwin, but it's like, what if Mike Evans goes down? Like, can he be somebody who has a real full route tree? That's what they tested him out. I think teams often use preseason as a test to see what a player can do in different types of situations. And I thought he looked really good working down the field. He's not somebody who's going to like burn and create a ton of separation, but he can get enough. And he's so smooth tracking the ball and catching the ball, that like if he gets just that step, Baker can put it in the place it needs to be, and it's a touchdown.
Yeah, I
Okay.
watched some of that tape just real quick on Egbuka. I watched
Yeah.
some of it. I think one of the ways he wins as a vertical receiver is he's really good at stacking defensive back. And I think that's something that he's just been showing really throughout his film, all of his college career. He's really good from the technical standpoint. And that just doesn't even touch on what Baker loves about him, which is the after the catch ability. So I'm very excited about him.
Yeah, he's a pro. Definitely just like refined all the way around. So some of the non-top rookies who we simply couldn't fit into today's show that I did want to just like kind of quickly run down, I think they're worth monitoring, are Pat Bryant for the Broncos, round 3 wide receiver, just looked super smooth. And he's one of these, there's a few players where the team like traded away another player. You know, they traded away Devon Vele. I don't know if that's directly because of Bryant, but it gets, you know, it's like maybe we've seen enough. Like we saw the same thing with the Lions with Tesla. And there was one other one that I think we'll probably get to at some point later. I can't remember who it was. Jalen Lane for Washington is just like super, super electric as a mover. He's another player who like really, it was like an audition. They tried him in the slot. That's what I thought he was coming into the league. I thought he was going to be like School of Deebo Samuel this year, but they also used him down the field a lot too. And he did look like somebody who could create separation, even if it's a bit wild and unrefined, the route running right now. So that's Washington, round 4 rookie, super athletic. Who knows what will happen with the receivers? Like Noah Brown hasn't been able to stay on the field. Terry McLaurin, Deebo Samuel, we don't really know where he's at. So he's definitely named to know because that offense could be really good. Alec Ayamanor, still don't know. Tennessee Titans. I really liked his film. It was up and down. I know a lot of people like can't help but cling to the downs, you know, and get real nervous and worried about that or whatever. Like that turns them off. But the ups are there. Like he's a legitimately really pretty special mover. Like he's just somebody to keep an eye on because the receiver room there is wide open. Like we don't know if Tyler Lockett has anything left.
True.
We don't know if Van Jefferson ever had anything. It definitely could be.
It's been a slow start for DK too.
Yeah. Did you say for DK? Oh, yeah, DK. Sorry, I was thinking of DK Metcalf. Yeah, DK.
The other receiver they drafted. Yep.
I don't really see it with him. I think he's more of a returner in special teams.
Former Badger. He's got speed, but not much else.
And then some tight ends. Oh, one more receiver, Jalen Royals for the Chiefs. I mentioned on the Rookie Gym show that I think he was drafted to fill the Rashee Rice role. So I was like excited for that, but he's got a knee injury. So keep an eye on him. I don't know when he'll be back. But like they have all these speed threats right now, and they don't have that catch and run guy really. And so maybe it's going to be a lot of Travis Kelce, which will make Dan happy early on. But if Royals is able to get on the field, definitely could be somebody who's relevant at the beginning of the year here. Tight ends, Mason Taylor for the Jets. It was kind of a slow start. Looked good, looked smooth. I think he could get a lot of targets. Gunnar Helm, dude, I freaking love this guy. Nobody cares about Gunnar Helm, but he's so good. Gunnar Helm for the Titans, and
what's your comp for him from what you've seen movement skills wise?
I don't know. That's a good question. I'll have to think about it more.
He's an interesting prospect. He's not your typical like breakout at tight end, I don't think.
Yeah, well, I think people do not give him enough credit as an athlete because he did his combine testing with that like really brutally injured ankle. But the guy is pretty freaking smooth, long strider and just like phenomenal at the catch point. And you saw that this preseason too. So it's like him and Chigakonkwo. And kind of what I was talking about with Ayamanor, where it's like there are probably going to be opportunities available if these players are talented enough to get on the field. I just don't have a lot of faith in the receivers in that room. I think Calvin Ridley. So keep an eye on him. They could play Chig in the slot more. They don't have a clearly defined slot guy really. So that could be Okonkwo and Helm could be more of the inline tight end. And then Mitchell Evans, like literally no one cares about him. He's like 2% rostered on Sleeper, even in dynasty leagues. This guy's a legitimately decent tight end prospect, good receiver, real big body player, a different type of player than Jatavion Sanders. It's kind of like the Tennessee tight ends a little bit. And with, trading away Thielen, Coker injured, he could get on the field more. And so he's just another one to keep an eye on because I think it wouldn't surprise me if at some point we're picking him up because he's scoring touchdowns. All right. We have more specific stuff, though, to talk about. I'm very excited for this episode. We've got like some superlatives. Who's this year's Bucky Irving? Who's this year's Brian Thomas Jr., Ladd McConkey, stuff like that. And while I say this in jest, because like those guys are freaking phenomenally gifted players and athletes and everything, we did our best to form criteria and make this a logical discussion and not only a fun one. So I'm definitely looking forward to that.
Yeah, we're going a bit bold. Whenever you're predicting the next anything, you got to go a little bold and things have to fall into place. But we'll discuss that. And I'm excited to wait the way Jacob has it formatted for how we're going to do this. I don't want to spoil that yet. But before we do that, I do want to say this. Thank you to everyone who has taken the time to leave us a rating and a review on Spotify and iTunes. I've been just checking them out through this long weekend, Jacob. I've been so just enthusiastic, I guess is the word to use, about how excited people are about the show and how willing they are to help support us by leaving that rating and review. We will continue to answer questions that are made clear on the rating and review. So again, if you leave us a rating, a 5-star rating with a review, ask a question and we will answer it. We're doing that on the next show, I believe, tomorrow. So we'll continue to do that. But I just want to thank everyone who took the time to do that. And thank everyone who has supported this show on YouTube as well, leaving a comment, hitting the like button. Hover that hand over the mouse, hit the like button. It's a 3-second process, and it makes all the difference for us. There's a new hype button on YouTube as well. I'd like you to start using that as well to help us grow. Look, we need to grow this show from ground up, and that's how we do it, your support. So thank you again. I just want to make that note.
Great stuff, Plug God. Did you see the collage that I put together on X with all the comments? Was that cute? Where's the hype button? Where's the hype button? I'm not seeing that.
Yeah, there's a hype button on YouTube. You gotta be in the know, I think, because some people are like, I haven't seen it yet. Just check it out. If you see that hype button, click the hype thing on YouTube. Maybe they're just rolling it out for a few people. I don't know. Yeah. We'll see. But I'm sure it helps. Go ahead.
I'm gonna make my best guesses at some week 1 snap rates for these rookies. And then we can go to break and then we'll get into like who's this year's Bucky. I'll go position by position and you just let me know if anything stands out to you. So I think the top 2 at tight end who come in and play probably over 70% of the snaps right away are Tyler Warren and Mason Taylor. Mason Taylor might not be that high because he did have kind of a slow roll here in the preseason with health. But I think it's just like such a clearly defined role for those two. And I think the Jets are going to use a lot of tight ends and a lot of, big formations to run. So that's my guess, is that they'll be at the top. I think Colston Loveland, we're probably dealing with a bit of a slower start. I put him at 65% as my guess. We'll see. We don't exactly know what the Ben Johnson offense will look like. In the past has used a lot of, multiple tight ends and play action and all of that stuff. And I think Loveland will be really involved with that. But he also got a bit of a slow start to the preseason. And so it's possible that, it's a complex offense that'll just kind of take a little bit, like a little bit of time, maybe like by their bye week.
I do think, though, one note on that, against Brian Flores and the way you're trying to match up to beat Brian Flores, you might want to go heavier personnel. So I think it's possible this could be a good game script for him, but I wouldn't feel confident yet starting him either.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, such a crazy matchup to put Caleb against Brian Flores on Monday Night Football. The Bears have a week 5 bye, so it's one of the earliest possible buys. I think it's possible just like wheels up from there with Loveland. And maybe we even see Burden get into the rotation more and more from that point on. But I don't think we'll see much of Burden at all early on. And Loveland probably splitting with Cole Kmet more than people would like. So don't panic. I think that's just what we should expect. Anything beyond that is just gravy. Harold Fannin Jr., I've got at 55%. He was basically there splitting right even with Njoku when Joe Flacco was on the field. It could be more. They didn't use a ton of 2 tight ends last year, but I think they might use more this year. So keep an eye on him. He could be in a fantasy relevant role right away. I think I had him as like a top 20 tight end this week in week 1, which is pretty insane for a rookie. I think he's only like 2 spots behind Loveland, but playing against the Bengals, I think we could see some design stuff to Fannin even. So those are the 4 that I would guess are relevant out the gate. Beyond that, it's like 45% Mitchell Evans. I would love to see Terrence Ferguson on the field, but I think he'll be buried behind Tyler Higbee for some time. And like Elijah Arroyo, I don't think we'll probably see a lot of. I would guess it's AJ Barner is the primary tight end, and Arroyo gets some packages designed for him where he's in there. And Gunnar Helm probably splitting time. I don't like Arunde Gadsden was somebody we were excited about earlier in the offseason. He didn't really play with the starters at all. This is the Chargers move tight end. Maybe he gets involved more as the year goes on, but I wouldn't expect much early in the year. Does that all sound about right to you?
Sounds about right to me. The Fannin one's the most interesting to me because I just think back to the tape we watched, some of the stats that backed it up, and he was, to me, one of the most underrated prospects in the draft. from the community standpoint. I think the Browns kind of proved like, no, we envision what you're seeing on tape and his ability to kind of, I wouldn't say unnaturally, but what's the word I'm looking for? To move in a less traditional, unconventional way. But it works, and he gets open, and he creates separation. And I think he could just hit the ground running. Like people said that with Isaiah Likely too when he was coming out. They liked the way that he moved in space. I feel like he's been excellent at the NFL level and adjusted really well to NFL defensive speed. So I think that's possible for Finn. And he's on my short list of players that I think we could be looking at, like, oh, a waiver wire pickup, even with Njoku there.
Yeah, he doesn't really run though, so maybe hit the ground waddling.
yeah.
His speed. At wide receiver, I think we'll see a lot of Tedero McMillan right away. We've got him at 80, 90%. I think he can push up into that range, wide receiver 1 stuff right away. Emeka Egbuka, probably 80% or so. The Bucs are they rotate guys in a lot. Is what they've done in the past. But with some injuries, maybe he ends up playing like quite a bit early on. What do you think about Travis Hunter? This is like, who knows? This is like the question of all the questions when it comes to rookies. I've got him at 70%. Is that aggressive?
Travis Hunter. So I've read lately that they're planning to play him more than we expected on defense, which I don't love because we've been super high on Hunter all offseason from just everything besides the snap rate I'm in on. But I also think just thinking about the way that Liam Cohen wants to design this offense early on, there's really no way to not have Hunter on the field, right? Like the whole idea is to get it to your playmakers in space. And I saw that in the first preseason game before he got hurt. So I'm thinking 70, 75%. They're going to try to win this game. It also could be a shootout type that game with with not a lot of defense.
Yeah, man. I've started the rankings for this week, and it's like Trevor Lawrence at QB 10, like BTJ top 5. Right. Hunter is like in the top 30, I think. Like feels awfully aggressive, but it could be a really big game right away. The other receiver who I think pushes above 70% is Matthew Golden for the Packers. They've had some guys banged up. I think that they're going to need him to help them in a big game right away. So we'll see where he's at. Those are really the only ones that I think push up into that range. Maybe like Isaac Tesla, if they use more through receivers than expected. Maybe Jalen Lane if he gets on the field a lot, but I don't think so. I think it's pretty much like somebody like Jaden Higgins I want to bring up.
Yeah, that's an interesting one.
He's like wide receiver 4 on the depth chart right now. I think early on, I've got him at like 30 to 40% of the snaps, and you don't need to drop him if he comes out and has 2 points or whatever in week 1. Like it's probably going to be a slow build with some of these guys. Yeah. Kyle Williams for the Patriots, I freaking love
slow build.
The talent. I wouldn't be surprised at all if he plays like 25% of the snaps in week
1. Or less, or fewer, honestly, with McDaniels.
Yeah.
All right, let's take a quick break. And then we're going to get it back in some other positions. And we're finally going to get to some of our bold calls on the next Bucky Irving, the next Puka Nacua, and other players you can target in your drafts.
Here we go. The 2025 CBS Sports NFL schedule is here. 18 glorious Sundays.
He's got his receiver touchdown.
Filled with rematches.
Oh, the play of the year.
And rivalries.
Touchdown, Bengals.
Plus, plenty of superstar showdowns. And an epic matchup between the Chiefs and Cowboys on Thanksgiving. Clear your Sundays beginning September 7th for the NFL on CBS and Paramount Plus.
Sorry, I was typing a little bit there, and I know some people aren't fans of this, but I am pretty excited. I was talking to producer Josh, who is a single-digit handicap himself, and I'm a 17. I just got to my lowest cap yesterday or 2 days ago, Jacob. This weekend, I shot my personal record at Francis Byrne, 84, my new PR. Just an unconscious feeling on the back nine. I shot a 39 on the back nine with 2 doubles, 6 pars, 1 birdie, 2 doubles on the back. And I ended the day with 4 straight pars and a birdie, 6-foot putt to end it. Dropped a 103-yard pitch shot in, perfectly lands soft on the green, 6 feet away from the hole, birdie to end the day. I just couldn't be more excited. I don't want to spend too much more time on it. It's not this kind of show. So let's get back to some notes on the running backs.
I've noticed that Dennis felt more locked in when we're talking about work and stuff, and it makes a lot of sense now. That's great, man. I love that for you. The chat is bringing up Torrey Horton. Where's Torrey Horton at?
We'll talk Horton. Don't worry.
I'm putting Torrey Horton at a 45% week 1 snap rate. I think they're going to use a lot of 2 receiver sets, which probably leaves him off the field most of the time. But, we hope that he plays his way into a big role as the year goes on. But hopefully you do not have to use him early on.
Yeah, agreed.
At running back, I'm going to start with Bill, Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt and work my way up.
Yeah, this is interesting. I want to talk to you about it, his snap share.
I've got him, Ollie Gordon, and Caleb Johnson all basically at the 40% snap rate mark.
Interesting.
Which probably means 5 to 12 touches or something like that, depending on how many plays the team has.
I'll just give you my quick takes on that. I think under for Ollie Gordon. I don't think he's going to play a lot, as much people think. I might be going under for Bill. Some of the stuff was recent. This is why I've been lower on Bill. Like some of the stuff I'm reading is like they like Chris Rodriguez. They're going to play Chris Rodriguez.
Sure, yeah.
So I might be going lower on that. And who was the last one we were discussing? Oh, Caleb, man. Did you hear what Tomlin said today? Tomlin said, did you see that Tomlin quote?
Mm-mm.
Let me see if I can pull it back up. It was essentially saying that Jalen Warren is our workhorse. He's our lead back. We signed him to be our lead back. And then he said Gainwell and Caleb will mix in when we feel like it, essentially.
Yeah, I think that makes sense out of the gate. 40% is probably kind of high. I have 38% is what I had him at. Dylan Sampson, I think, basically falls into this range too. We'll see if Junkins is going to play week 1. And then the 4 backs above that are Travion Henderson. I've got it 50%. I know we want more. I'm taking the conservative approach. We'll see. RJ Harvey, I've got it 60%. I think that the game script sets up well for him to be on the field a lot. I think with Harvey, I worry about games where they're playing from behind and they need better pass protection in. I don't think they're going to need that at home against a rookie quarterback. And then Hampton, I've got it 70%. If Najee plays, maybe bump that down a little bit, but I think we're going to see a lot of him. And then Ginty, I think, is basically all the way up at like 80, 90% right away.
We're a little different on that. I'm definitely more skeptical on a lot of these rookies. I don't think Harvey's going to have the lead job to start, but we'll see. I hope you're right.
Yeah. I mean, that's what it was in the preseason. I think it makes sense that they'll want to get him, see what he can do, like with the early down touches. And if you're up 14, 20, I don't think they're just going to be like grinding him into 20 touches. But I would think they would try to get him some clean looks, see if they can build a little bit of momentum with him. Because it's just like there's way more upside if they get
just
him.
Convince me on that, because I think the game script is the reason I can get on board with him getting more of the snaps. If the game script was more neutral or even them trailing, I would think we'd see a lot of Dobbins.
Yeah. All right. Who is this year's Bucky Irving?
Bum, bum, bum.
So I've got a group of candidates. Our initial, like the OG, who's this year's Bucky Irving, was RJ Harvey. We talked about that on the very first Beyond the Box Score video that you can like find on this offseason playlist all the way back in June or whenever that was. It's around the 27-minute mark. We compare Harvey to Bucky analytically, and I think it's actually pretty interesting. I know that he didn't have a huge preseason, so people are kind of soured on Harvey, but he compares really well to Bucky, and obviously the situation is awesome. And so that's one of the most important parts of the Bucky Irving equation is like awesome offensive line, awesome coaching, team put up a ton of points. And so that is definitely worth considering as we look at this group. The criteria that I laid out is good offense, good talent, and their team 1 running back is selected outside of the top 30 in ADP. I actually thought it was, did you realize Rachaad White was a 4th round pick last year? I totally forgot that.
It was a high draft pick last year. Yep.
Yeah. As I went to set this criteria, I thought it was going to be like outside the top 50.
He had so many touchdowns the year before. I think that's what. Yeah.
So somebody like Ollie Gordon doesn't fit that perfectly. Doesn't get all 3.
Might have receptions. My bad. Sorry on White. Go ahead.
Because of Achane being there. So we're looking for like some ambiguity in the backfield and a good offense. And then we also want to feel good about the talent. Mm-hmm. And the players that I laid out are Bashal Tootin, who's like the obvious pick because he has Liam Cohen now taking over as his offensive coordinator. And that's the man who engineered the huge Bucky Irving season last year. Then we've got our boy Bill, Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, Kyle Monangai for the Bears, Taj Brooks for the Bengals, Woody Marks for the Texans, Jarquez Hunter for the Rams, Dylan Sampson. I think he's more like this year's Tyrone Tracy. We'll get to him briefly for the Browns. And then Ollie Gordon, who everybody has become enamored with at the end of draft season here for the Dolphins. It's about 7 or 8 running backs. See who fits the criteria and who might be somebody who is a little bit overlooked. If you think, by the way, if there's any running back I didn't mention, definitely put that in the chat. I think I got the candidates. I think I nailed this here. You want to start with Tootin?
Yeah, let's start with Tootin.
Okay, so Tootin, let's look at the criteria here. We've got good offense. We don't know, but it could be. It's not nearly the offensive line talent. but it definitely could be a high scoring offense. Good talent. I think we both feel really good about that. And we're going to spend some time with that one for sure. And then Team R would be one selected outside of the top 30. Definitely. So we've got 2 clear greens and one, we'll just say no. We'll just say no on good offense, but it could be, it doesn't have to be, the Bucks last year, but I think it could be a good offense.
Can I possibly throw one more thing into our criteria?
Sure.
Good scheme and play calling. Because I think that played a huge role in Bucky's breakout. Not saying Bucky didn't deserve all the flowers he gets, but obviously we know Cohen put him in a really good position. I guess that kind of goes along lines of good offense, but it's a little different.
I think I just like it being the good offensive environment, because I do think Bucky was so special that boosted it, but it's tough to say. When I get into this Tootin comp and I look at him compared to Bucky is just blowing me away, his college stats. And then also what we saw last year. So one of the big things that's similar with Tootin and Bucky Irving is that both of them were really, really good at creating extra yardage when they were dead to rights, when defenses had them in the backfield. That was something that the Jaguars GM talked about Bashal Tootin before he even got the job as the GM. He mentioned him as a candidate that would be a good fit for their team. And he and Liam Cohen both talk about how he's great at creating yards when there's nothing there. And that was bread and butter for Bucky last year. The offense helped him and everything, but he averaged 3.4 yards per rush when hit at or behind the line of scrimmage, which was double the NFL average, 1.7, and was 40% higher than second place. It was Bucky and then everybody else. And Tootin was on par with Bucky when you dig in. I've been digging into all the collegiate data. When hit at or behind the line of scrimmage, he was on par with Bucky, and Bucky was the best. I'm looking at only running backs who've been drafted round 4 or higher who also hit the minimum rush threshold. And so it's a bunch of really good running backs, and Bucky is the best, and Tootin is right there with him. And we have a very similar sample size, 356 rushes over the final 2 seasons for Tootin, 342 over the final 2 seasons for Bucky. And I do think it's relevant that you maybe know more about college football than me, but as I've looked at their schedules, it doesn't look that different playing at Oregon compared to Virginia Tech. Is that just asinine to say? That Bucky in his huge season played one Power 4 school.
Right.
That
was, I think, before Oregon was in the Big Ten too.
It was 2023 is when he had that huge season. Yeah. Their schedule was just it wasn't any
Pac-12 ACC were pretty similar.
That's how it's felt looking at the two. And so that, I don't know, it's just it's a really interesting comparison between the two. And Tootin's numbers overall, remove all the filters, just base numbers are right on par, if not better than Irving. So 36% avoided tackle rate for Bashal Tootin in college, 35% for Bucky. Those are elite. 4.1 yards after contact per rush for Tootin, 3.8 for Bucky. Again, elite. Both of them are really, really high. And then if you consider this context, it really becomes apparent how high the upside is for Tootin. He was not in a good offensive blocking environment. He was not in a situation that was conducive for success, whereas Bucky was at Oregon. So I looked at the percentage of runs where the running back was hit at the line of scrimmage, got 0 or fewer yards before first contact, as well as 1 or fewer or 2 or fewer yards before first contact. So they're getting blown up in the backfield. For Tootin, that was 51% of his rushes, where he got 0 or more yards before contact, over half. The group average among these, I told you, round 4 running backs or higher, was 41%. Bucky was 33%.
Wow.
So Tootin was significantly higher than the group average, significantly higher than Bucky. And still, his base numbers are right on par with Bucky's, whose were spectacular. 33% of his runs was 1 or fewer yards before first contact, -1. 21% he was hit 2 or more yards behind the line of scrimmage. It's hard to explain, to verbalize what I'm talking about here. It's hit behind the line of scrimmage, but it's negative yards. 33% and 21% compared to 21% and 11% for Bucky. And those are both Tootin's numbers are much higher than the league average as well. And on runs where he got at least 1 yard before contact, 1 yard blocked before the first defender hit him, to an average 9 yards per rush, had a 27% explosive run rate, which are tied with Bucky for like the very best. Another stat that contextualizes all this well, I think, is avoided tackle rate when met at or behind the line of scrimmage. So on these plays where the defense is getting there before he really has anything that he can do, the highest avoided tackle rates on those plays dating back to 2017 among running backs drafted round 4 or higher, with 150 or more of these types of carries, were Bucky at 42.9%. And again, I gave you that stat. He did this in the NFL last year, so it's no surprise that he's at the very top. 42.9% for Bucky, 42.5% for Tootin, 40.4% for Bijan Robinson. And then it's a huge drop-off to next, which is a bunch of really good running backs. I think this might be like an incredible stat. I need to spend more time with it.
Yeah.
But the next running backs behind Bucky, Tootin, and Bijan Robinson, who are all in the 40 to 43% range, are Achane at 34%, Breece Hall at 33%, Jahmyr Gibbs, Ken Walker, and Zach Charbonnet at 32%.
Wow.
There's really nobody. Yeah, there's nobody up there that's like, oh, that guy, that was fake, or whatever. So I think that's all really interesting, just in terms of the creativity that Tootin brings. And then you have the speed element. Like, this stuff is all relevant, and it's what we've seen this preseason, where 18 out of his 19 runs have gained positive yards. He hasn't gained negative yards on any of his runs. This is Bashal Tootin. And he has the speed element to hit the home runs. And so that, to me, is how he actually could get to the Bucky Irving upside, even if the team isn't as good, is he can make up for the goal line opportunities that might not be there as plentifully as they were in Tampa Bay, with freaking 40, 50-yard touchdown runs that Bucky just didn't really get to. Are you convinced?
More than convinced. I mean, I've been convinced on Tootin for a while. My Bucky meter here, I'm going to give this one a 9.2. This will be one of my highest, I imagine. I think this is the Bucky candidate. In addition to what you talked about, Jacob, I think what makes Bucky special as a running back is the fact that, one, he can stop and start his momentum and restart it fast. 2, he runs with good low center of gravity. And 3, it's the contact balance. I think Tootin has all of those things, and you saw it on tape. But in addition to that, he also has the long speed that I don't know if Bucky Irving has. So all of those factors are great. The only reason it wouldn't be a 9.9 on the Bucky scale would probably be just the fact that that Jaguars offensive environment, the offensive line, and the offense in general were not sold on yet.
People in the chat are bringing up receiving, that he doesn't have the same type of receiving profile as Bucky.
I thought he looked okay. They didn't use him a lot.
Yeah, they didn't. That's what I was going to say. Is for what it's worth, on a per opportunity basis, receiving stuff does look good. But they are right that he doesn't have the receiving profile that Bucky does. And that normally matters. That often matters to, like, you need to be productive as a receiver in college to then be so in the pros. But not always. Kenneth Walker wasn't at all. And everybody was like so worried about that. And then he was, I think, like 3rd or 4th in targets per game last year at the running back position.
Yep. Same thing happened with Jonathan Taylor. There's plenty of that.
I think it has a lot to do with coordinator and scheme a lot of the time with running back. And
agreed.
The Bucs gave more screen targets to the running back position than like anybody last year. They were so good in the screen game. I think the Dolphins were the only ones that had more receptions to running backs on screens. So if that's like a Liam Cohen stat and that carries over, it's possible that could be Tootin, who inherits a lot of that kind of work. It's a valid point, but like it could end up just being negated and not mattering, depending on how Liam Cohen decides to use them.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Again, we went over kind of the issues. By the way, before we're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to get back into other candidates because we need one more break here. But before we do that, I do want to mention to you, Jacob, there is going to be one player that you did not put on the Bucky Irving list that I am disappointed in you for not mentioning, and I think might be top 3 in my Bucky Irving meter among all your candidates, and he wasn't even on your list. So we'll get to that after the break.
You can always count on Sundays with the NFL on CBS and Paramount Plus. So even if you can't count on accurate expiration dates,
that is a rookie mistake,
or people appreciating your fashion sense,
Jim, the crowd is not on board here.
you can always count on Sundays with the NFL on CBS, streaming on Paramount Plus.
Glad we wear our good jerseys.
Yeah.
All right, Jacob, we're back. Let's get to our next Bucky Irving candidate.
When do I get to hear who I missed?
Do you want to just do it now?
Yeah.
Jaden Blue. That's my candidate. And my case for him, my quick case for him would be that he fits in line with a lot of what I'm looking for. Good offense, good talent. I loved his film personally. And team running back 1 is selected outside of the top 30. So he really, I don't know what criteria he doesn't fit versus a lot of these other players who will struggle to have that, to fit it all.
Yeah, you're right. It's just the profile that he doesn't have. I don't know about his talent. When I watch him and I see him do really cool stuff and he's fast, but he doesn't have the data that you can like compare to Irving. You know, he doesn't have any track record of like handling a lot of work or anything like that. So I don't really know how scalable it is, like what kind of player he's actually going to be as a pro. But he does fit the criteria that we set out, and he's somebody we both like. So definitely keep Jaden Blue on the brain as we move through the year. Who knows what will happen in that backfield?
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, we spent a lot of time on Tootin there, but I do think all that stuff's really interesting. And like, he had the highest stuffed rate, which is like when you get tackled for a loss or no gain of any running back by far in this class. It was him and Caleb Johnson and then everybody else. And so like, I do think it's important to contextualize that, you know, is like, he's just getting drilled behind the line. What is he supposed to do? And when he is getting met behind the line, he's avoiding a tackle. He's avoiding almost 50% of tackles. What the hell? That's crazy. Okay. Let's talk about our boy, Bill. If we can share screen here, Josh, I've got collegiate data for this group of running backs here. There's a lot of information here to look at. On the far right, it's yards after contact per rush. So you see Tootin at the top. Next is Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt. Stuffed rate is right here. That was the one I mentioned. It's a really bad, scary looking stat for Tootin. Yards per rush, success rate, all the classic stuff. Avoided tackle rate is here. I've got the shotgun rate. So this is the percentage of the runs that come from shotgun. Basically, all these guys is like 90%. And I just wanted to show people that because it's like, it's different transitioning to the pros. Like outside of Caleb Johnson, almost none of these guys are playing in pro style offenses. And then you also have light boxes and heavy boxes over here. Which is like, you know, at least worth mentioning for somebody like Bucky who had, you know, only 16% of his runs coming against light boxes or against heavy boxes. Same thing here for Tootin, really low rate within that metric. Same thing for like Woody Marks, where a lot of his snaps are like clear passing down snaps and stuff like that. Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, we're going to get Dan's Bucky meter on him. He fits a lot of the criteria, I think. Good offense for sure. Team running back 1 selected outside of the top 30 for sure. So then it's a question of talent. You know, for as much as we like him, objectively, the last running back selected in the draft, round 7.
Yeah. Though context played a huge role in that.
Of course. Also, he had one career game against a Power 4 school. So he had one career game against a team that was ranked in the top 25 in AP polls. Mm-hmm. So it's like not easy to make sense of these statistics. You know, I don't want to get carried away with it, but you will see him near the top of all of these stats. Great success rate, especially when teams stack the box, which they did a lot against him. He continued to have a great success rate. He avoided tackles at a very high rate, 35%, and his explosive run rates were also strong. And he was great at creating yards after contact. So if the talent is there in the way that the numbers suggest that it is, and some film does suggest that it is too, then he does check every box. Where are you at with Bill? How does he feel on the Bucky Irving scale?
That's an 8.7 for me.
Wow, that's high.
Scale. That's high. These are some of my, we're starting with some of my higher guys. 9.2, 8.92 for Tootin, 8.7 for Bill Krosky-Merritt. Now, here's the reasons. You've broken them down. I believe in the talent, first of all. That's through the tape. I mean, I didn't even really know who this guy was until I had you on Big Blue Banter, my Giants podcast with Nick, and you two were both like, I love this kid's tape. They're like, all right, if you two are seeing that, I need to watch it. And I did too. So love the talent, love the offensive environment. That's a key factor here. I'm talking all about how scheme played a role in Bucky Irving's breakout. Too many guys on my mind. Tootin, Irving. I feel the same's the case. Cliff Kingsbury can scheme that run game up. Man, watching that preseason game, It was phenomenal. And obviously, we don't have any running backs being drafted in the top 30, with Eckler maybe still the highest ADP, but it might be Bill at this point. Now, just like Tootin, this is a three-headed backfield. So there's a little lack of clarity on when he might be featured in this role. But I think he ultimately could prove to be the best talent in this backfield, which will mean he's going to have to get the most touches. So for me, I'm in on this one too.
Yeah, that's high. I think I would probably put him in like a solid 7.5 or 8. I just don't want to get over my skis here with the talent projection. People ask what a 10 would be on the Bucky Irving scale. I think it's just you are Bucky Irving.
Well, okay, this is how I'm looking at it. That's a good question. Put some context behind the scale. Okay, so the scale is, for me at least, most like 10, like I'm doing 9.2 and 8.7. A 10 would be most likely to have that possibility. It's not that it's going to happen. I would argue that it's very unlikely we'll see another Puka and Bucky this year. Now, that's stupid to suggest, maybe because it's happened in each of the past few years. So maybe there's one player that can do it. So yeah, you know what? I take that back. Screw it. Yeah, it means that it's going to be the next Bucky Irving, because there's no real reason these guys can't be other than opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, maybe Tootin could be better, man, if he's getting the big runs.
Right. Tootin could be better. The issue for me, why I can't put him at like a 10 or
he's
a
gonna
9.9.
He's going to be inactive in week 1.
Well, I think, not just that. Tootin, I think, honestly, I liked his film better than Bucky's, and I think he has the long speed. Bucky may not. But he doesn't have Tristan Wirfs. He doesn't have Graham Barton on that offensive line in Jacksonville, and I just can't get over that.
For sure. All right, I want to move on to Kyle Monangai, who I believe has been a favorite of Dan's. Dan, do you remember that I mentioned that I wanted to make a spike pick when you took a receiver? It was Monangai. Yeah. Where does he fall on this scale? It's kind of like the Jaguars, where the offense could be good, but we don't know for sure. We don't know about the talent. His metrics don't look as good as, Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt's and some of these other running backs we're going to talk about today. He's, in the bottom half in a lot of them. But it's kind of like Isaiah Pacheco, where his metrics were awful, but team environment had a lot to do with it.
Sure.
But it is a projection. He's around 7 running back. Team RB1 selected outside the top 30. That is intact. So he has at least one of the criteria checked. The other two, we're not so sure on. Where do you fall with Monangai?
Monangai is on a 6.8 for me, 6.8 on the Bucky Irving scale. I think from a talent standpoint, and I watched a lot of him before watching his tape just on broadcast because my brother's a big Rutgers fan and we have that in the family. He was the entire offense, and they knew that he was the entire offense. They still couldn't stop him. I think his special talent or a special trait that might translate is his ability to create yards after contact and his contact balance and just the way he runs, which is somewhat reminiscent of a David Montgomery, an old Ben Johnson favorite. But even in saying that, Jacob, I notice, well, what's the upside, right? With Tootin and Bill, it's like these could be explosive playmakers that need to lead your offense, and you design an entire offense around in a lot of ways like they did with Bucky toward the end of the season. Now, not fully, obviously, but they started to lean into it. I don't see that being the case for Monangai. I see him being more of like Ben Johnson's version of David Montgomery and what should be a much worse offense than the Lions. Even if they hit their ceiling, the Bears, they are not going to be what the Lions have been. I think that should be pretty obvious to everyone. Now, maybe it's not. Caleb I loved, but their all-line I don't think is there yet. And I think Caleb needs some time as well. So there's just not enough to have me leaning higher in that regard. And it's a little bit of uncertainty with the offensive environment too.
Yeah, that's about where I would fall too. And then he got banged up at the end of the preseason, which is tough.
So is Roshan. It's a weird situation there.
Don't know how much he'll play early on.
We could see Travis Homer in week 1.
Taj Brooks is our next candidate here.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely a good offense. But he does not have the team RB1 selected outside the top 30. For him to, do the thing that Bucky Irving did and just surpass the RB1 would be a real surprise. Originally, like this offseason, I kind of thought of it as a similar situation. Chase Brown was being drafted later, kind of around where Rachaad White ended up going. But he's pushed all the way up in round 2, and I think that makes sense based off what we've seen this preseason. So where are you at with Taj Brooks? His metrics are good. He's not nearly as explosive as some of these guys. But he's kind of like Bucky in that his avoided tackle rate is good, especially when hit behind the line of scrimmage. He's good at churning out successful plays and stuff like that. He's just maybe not going to give you a lot of 40, 50, 60-yard runs.
Yeah, he's a 2.1 for me, unfortunately. Yeah. And I did like his tape, and we like a trait specifically when watching his tape, his processing. I just don't think it at all fits what the Bengals are as an offense, to be quite frank. Like, I think he could benefit from a big power gap blocking scheme with good offensive linemen to actually move people at the point of contact. I don't think the Bengals have that at all. In addition to that, a big red flag is what you mentioned. Chase Brown is being drafted inside the top 30, and Chase Brown is a player who I think at least is going to be one of the few workhorse backs in the NFL this year while also having a receiving role. So I don't know where he fits in, Brooks. Now, obviously the assumption is like, what if Brown gets hurt? Can Brooks be in that role? I don't think he would have the role that maybe we're expecting. And the final thing is with Brooks, like, yes, I love his processing, Jacob, but I don't really think he's the most explosive back. And I think that when you go to the NFL level, I think you need that. Like, to be a Bucky Irving type, you need some explosion in your game, a little bit more at least.
Yeah, totally fair. At least you got that 0.1 in there.
Yeah, I don't do even numbers. My 10, it's a 1 to 10 scale. If you're not leaving decimals, you're a rookie grader.
I mean, 2.0 is still like including the decimal. It's just that's the truest representation of where he lands in your mind. That's totally
That's
fine.
fair. If I will do some 0.0s if it needs to be done.
Woody Marks, Houston Texans. They traded up to get Woody Marks in round 4. So same draft range as Bucky Irving, potentially a good offense. Good talent is questionable. He looks awful when you look at these rushing metrics.
Metrics-wise, he's not good.
But he piled up a ridiculous amount of receiving work, like more than anything I've really ever seen from a running back prospect. So he could be fantasy relevant, you know? Team RB1 selected outside the top 30? Absolutely. Nobody has any idea what the hell's going on in this backfield. Where are you at with Woody Marks here?
Marks is a player who I didn't really like his tape at college, but I've seen some preseason. I'm like, wait a second, there is some juice there. Dave Richards been big on him. He's liked his preseason tape a lot. As far as the Bucky Irving meter goes, I'm going to stick with my evaluation from the college tape. Also, some questions about the offensive environment. Do like the fact that there is no running back draft in the top 30. It's just not enough for me. I'm going to go 3-3 here.
Yep, totally fair, totally fair. How about Jarquez Hunter? I know this has been a favorite of Dan's. He looks really good within the lens we're looking at here analytically. Almost 4 yards after contact per rush is just above Bucky Irving's career average, with a slightly lower avoided tackle rate, but more explosive runs. He lands in a good offense. I do feel pretty good about his talent, so we're going to go 2 for 2 here. Team RB1 selected outside the top 30. Not quite. It's sort of close to the range where it is. It's sort of close to the range where Rachaad White was being drafted. And Kyren Williams is sort of like Rachaad White in the fact that, like, he's on the field because the coaching staff has loved him and there hasn't been anyone else. And so he's like filled this role. But like for years now, people have kind of been like, is this the year that he gets pulled back? You know, people always had this pervasive doubt about Rachaad White. And that has existed for Kyren, even though he's been really, really productive for fantasy. And, you know, it sounds crazy to be like he could get rug pulled, but Rachaad White was like the RB6 or something in fantasy the year before. And then he just like slowly, it became apparent that he was not as good as Bucky Irving. So I do think that's all interesting, because if the running back one is more susceptible than we think, then we've got all 3 boxes checked here for Jarquez Hunter. It's a little bit complicated, and the Blake Corum exists as well. But I mean, with Bucky, they also did have Sean Tucker, who the team freaking rants and raves about, and I think is a legitimately good runner. I've seen more from Sean Tucker than I have from Blake Corum. And so I think Jarquez Hunter might be the guy we're sleeping on here. How does this feel to you? I hope I don't influence you to be too outrageous with the ranking, because I know that you already like Hunter a lot. So I'm just adding fuel to the fire here. How do we feel here?
I think he's the most slept on rookie this entire preseason. People have talked up Tootin. People are even starting to talk up Tesla now. I see him coming off the board early. I was like, damn, I could have got this guy last round a few weeks ago and not even sweat it. Hunter, to me, is an 8.9, the second highest grade I'll give. Yeah, he's the second most likely for me. I think back to the podcast we did. I'm referencing it again. If anyone wants to check it out, you can find it. I think it's an interesting show. Jacob, myself, and my co-host Nick Filato on Big Blue Banter, where we just went through the rookie running backs. And we both agree, Jacob, from a metric standpoint, from a film standpoint, from a profile standpoint, his size, his speed combination, his build. In any other draft class, Jarquez Hunter would have been a top 5 running back off the board. It didn't really add up as to why he wasn't. Sean McVay made it clear as did their GM Snead. They love this guy. They felt like he was a much better talent than where he was drafted. I keep coming back to something else you mentioned, Jacob. Sean McVay saying, I've been watching some tape of these other coordinators, and I kind of like how they're mixing in other backs and they're finding ways
specific to Bucky Irving. Like he literally,
to Bucky
it was
Irving.
like Liam Cohen, who used to work with Sean McVay. He's like, I noticed what they're doing, and it's pretty cool.
Yes. And you go watch some of his Auburn tape, and he is that entire offense, but it's not necessarily in the Kyle Monungai way. He's that entire offense with Monungai's contact balance, his yards after contact upside, and some breakaway speed, a lot more than people realize. I have a feeling we're going to hit the ground running with Hunter. He'll get a role early, and he may not be this year's Bucky at first, but I think by midseason, everyone who watches the Rams is going to be like, it is glaringly obvious this is the best running back on their roster. And why are they not playing him more? And then they start to play him more, and he starts to get that Bucky Irving role. Honestly, the more I think about it, I may have to move him up to 1. I won't, but I may have to higher than what would it be? 9.2? It would be 9.3. I won't, because there is some uncertainty, and Kyron was drafted inside the top 30, so he doesn't fit that criteria, which I don't love. But I'm high enough to put him 8-9.
I love it. We've got a poll in the chat. Who's this year's Bucky Irving? Bashal Tootin with a commanding lead so far, 56%.
Ooh.
Jarquez Hunter is currently coming in 4th, but I think that's where we're at. Like you alluded to, he's probably the most slept on prospect in this class. Really loved his film. Analytics are great as well. He did it against good competition. You know, this
right, SEC. Yep.
This isn't your Corey Krosky-Mara where we've got to just try to like cipher through random data points that we don't know how well they'll translate. He crushed against the best level of competition. I think he's definitely worth keeping an eye on because he adds an element that Blake Corum, Kyron Williams just simply do not have with the explosive plays.
Yep.
All right. That was fun. Let's have some quicker discussions here about the wide receivers and tight ends. We're going to talk about who's this year's Brian Thomas Jr. We have 3 candidates for you. Who's this year's Ladd McConkey? Really only one who I think fits, but it is a fun one. Who's this year's Puka Nacua? 4 candidates. That's right. That'll be fun.
I have a strong take on that one.
And who is this year's Brock Bowers, Sam LaPorta, sneaky, massive tight end fantasy season as a rookie?
I think that one's pretty obvious if anyone's listening to our show.
But I've got another one that's not so obvious.
Okay,
You're gonna have to stick around for the whole thing. Who's this year's BTJ? Okay, so one of the hottest takes that I have had brewing at any point this offseason was that Trey Harris was going to be this year's BTJ. I unfortunately was not able to unleash it. Maybe that's for the best. You know, maybe I would have been only setting myself up for failure online with fantasy receipts. But what I did was I dug. This is a stylistic comparison first and foremost. I know that Brian Thomas Jr.'s testing speed is way, way faster than Trey Harris. But the way that they won in college was go be big and awesome and just dominate everybody who's too small to do anything about it. Measurables clearly favor BTJ, but I looked at reception perception charting, which is Matt Harmon's proprietary work where he's grading all the different types of routes and grading the receivers versus different types of coverage. If you look at the screen here, you'll see Brian Thomas Jr.'s 2023 chart and Trey Harris's 2024 chart. They win in a lot of the same ways. 72% success rate on 9 routes for BTJ, 62% for Trey Harris. Those are both exceptional. And of course, BTJ is the most exceptional. He's just unstoppable on 9 routes. Slants, easy winners for those two. The curls, easy winner for Trey Harris and I believe BTJ. Yep, 88% for Harris, 83% for BTJ. The clear difference here is that BTJ cooked on out routes, which he actually didn't do great at as a rookie. But I do think he has more lateral movement ability than what we saw from Trey Harris. We didn't get to see Trey Harris do a lot of it.
I agree with that.
But his success rate was 63%, was much lower. So small sample size for each of these guys. They're mostly working on the vertical plane, these two in college, which is why I did this comparison in the first place. And Dan says true X's. And that's what we suspected that we were going to give it Trey Harris. But the whole reason that I'm like backing off of Trey Harris is because this preseason, the Chargers are not using him that way. They're using him almost exclusively as like a pre-snap mover, somebody who's off of the line of scrimmage, who is doing a lot of horizontal stuff. I don't know what this will mean. It's possible that this was just a test run. Come regular season, he's out there in the X role. Who knows? But for now, it feels as if he's going to be behind Ladd McConkey and Keenan Allen, who fill that role for the team. And the X receiver is going to be Quentin Johnston and Keandre Lambert-Smith, who I also like. And so this year, I'm just probably not going to have any of Trey Harris outside of Dynasty. Keep an eye on him. He's really talented. But long-term, this could actually be an encouraging thing if they want to use him this way and develop him in this way, because this was what was lacking in his collegiate profile. We didn't get to see him do very much of the horizontal stuff. I've thought that he looks pretty good at it from what I've watched this preseason. Sure. I've watched every route that he ran this preseason. So the other comparison here we have from reception perception for these two is success rate versus man, zone, press, and those three coverage types, and then also contested catch rates. And it's pretty comparable. I mean, they're in the same range on all of them, except for zone coverage was notably better for BTJ, which is definitely important. That's the most prominent coverage type in the NFL. But I did just want to say there's some process behind me comparing those two, not just me being a crazy person. Because like anytime you hear like this year's BTJ, you just say no, right? The guy ran a freaking 4.33 at his size. It's insane. So who is this year's like overlooked for fantasy early round,
right,
in the NFL draft, rookie, wide receiver who could smash, not necessarily be the same type of real life contributor the BTJ is and scare defenses in the same way that BTJ does, but be a really good fantasy player, even though they're not getting drafted all that high? It's Matthew Golden, Luther Burden, and Jaden Higgins. Those are the guys who got drafted inside the top 40, but aren't going high in drafts. Golden has pushed up.
He's finally pushing up, sadly.
He's basically in the range that BTJ was. You know, BTJ looked really good in the preseason, and he pushed up to about this range. Like, I think he was like around 6 or 7 or something. So those are the three. I think they're all really interesting comparisons. Burden would be last for me of the group. Jaden Higgins, I'll say, and then I want to throw it to you, and you can talk about any of them. I'm definitely curious to hear what you think on these comparisons. Jaden Higgins is not as fast as BTJ, but of the three, if you're looking for a size speed freak, it's him. He's 1 inch taller, 5 pounds heavier than BTJ, ran a 4.47 compared to Thomas's 4.33. He has slightly longer arms. He's pick 34 compared to pick 23 for BTJ, and he plays with CJ Stroud. So like he could act, like if anyone's a stylistic comparison, he's the closest, and he might be like 85% of BTJ, which would still be really good for fantasy.
Yeah. So I'll start by saying this versus who's the next Bucky Irving on my Bucky meter, on my BTJ meter. We're never going to really get, at least out of this year's crop, Jacob, we're not going to get anywhere near as high from a meter standpoint. BTJ is a rare prospect. Not to say Bucky Irving isn't, but there's a different level to me, a clear tier 1 or 2 above what BTJ is versus what Bucky Irving offers the NFL. And that's not to knock Bucky. It's really to prop up BTJ. And BTJ was a player who I watched a lot of his tape because I was watching Neighbors for the Giants. And I think he's even better in the pros than he was at college because they asked him to do other things, the Jaguars, and he was really good at them. He's a freak of nature. He's 6'3", runs sub 4.4, and can move laterally. Like no one really, like I look at Higgins, man, we'll start with him. I think he's more of a test speed guy than a real speed guy. When I watch him on tape, I don't think he moves anywhere near the level of BTJ. Everything else is working for him, as you said. So I'll give him like a 5.6 based on that. We'll go next to Luther Burden, player who you've been high on. I also am high on from a talent standpoint. And I do think he moves pretty well differently than BTJ, more of that Deebo Samuel type as people compare him to, which I can see, but better vertically than a Samuel type. Very interesting prospect I'm very high on. I guess the problem for me with him is BTJ had a really clear path to volume in his rookie season. I don't really see that with Burden. And then you could argue that.
Yeah, I was real worried about his targets early on because they had Christian Kirk and they had Evan Ingram, and they just ran the offense through Ingram.
Sure. And I guess Kirk got hurt, which helped that.
Yeah, it was like shaky early on. It was like 18, 17% target share.
You know what? You're right. You're right about that. Just still, though, like there's Loveland. There's just a lot going on there at receiver and tight end for the Bears. I also just don't trust that offense yet, I guess is where I'm at. Not that I fully trust the Jaguars either. You know what? The more I'm kind of talking myself into Burden getting a high rating. Burden, I'm giving a 7.7. Giving Burden a 7.7. You've kind of convinced me. I do believe in the talent. I think he's much more talented than where he was drafted. There was some off-field stuff and some issues with, is he just a slot-only guy? It's like, no, Ben Johnson drafted him. He'll figure out how to best use him. I'm not worried about that at all. But then, of course, for me, we get to Matthew Golden. And I don't want to speak too much on Golden yet because we're doing a show like this coming up in the coming days on BTB. And I'll just kind of hint at it right now. We can do one spoiler. He is a flag plant player for me. So he's going to get a 9.9 on this BTJ. You know what? That's crazy. That's crazy. I just went over saying nobody is going to be BTJ.
The similarities are eerie, though. It's truly like
9-1, 9-1, 9-1.
The exact reasons that people were like worried about BTJ is why people are worried about Golden's profile. You know, it's like,
Yes.
he get targets. The clear difference is he wasn't playing with freaking Malik Neighbors, you know?
Right.
But he was like a new player in an offense that had a lot of, NFL talent in Isaiah Bond and Gunnar Helm. Yeah. Yeah.
Also, I mean, just to flip it a little bit here, I think he's playing with a much better quarterback situation than BTJ had last year.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, we're very, very excited about Golden for all the reasons. Coach, quarterback, it's a great fit for him. 9.9 is crazy.
No, I moved it. 9-1, 9-1.
Okay,
I want to make it. Okay. Nobody really. Brian Thomas is a rare prospect. Let's go to 9-1. Golden isn't a rare prospect. 9-1.
All right, that was fun. For me, it's going to be Matthew Golden, probably 8.5. Luther Burden's like a 3 or something.
Oh, lower.
Yeah, I think I would put Higgins higher. With Burden, it feels like a very low chance of it all coming together in a big way, but it could. And I guess I'm not 100% sold on the talent. I was intrigued by him, but I didn't see anything this preseason that like confirmed anything for me. It maybe just like left me like, okay, like we'll see how this goes. I mean, Ben Johnson believes in him, so like I'm inclined to, but I definitely don't want to lead anyone to think that he is like close to BTJ because I don't have any compelling evidence that he is.
Okay.
This year's Ladd McConkey, Kyle Williams, New England Patriots. Only veterans to beat on his depth chart. No established alpha wide receiver there. Stephon Diggs is the closest thing to that. And Diggs, to credit him, like played well last year. He's a good pro. We'll see where he's at. But like not a real lot of obstacles to get to like a significant amount of playing time and targets potentially if the player is good enough. And I think that is where we might be with Kyle Williams, is that he's legitimately good enough and just like proves to be the player that you need on the field because he's open a lot. And Drake may need somebody who's getting open. If Diggs isn't able to get open consistently and you're relying on like Demario Douglas to be the primary separator, then I just don't think that's a situation you want to put the team in and the quarterback in. And the quarterback is a big part of this too. I don't want to, expect Drake May to be Justin Herbert here, but he is a quarterback who can maximize the separation skill set, which is what we have here with Kyle Williams. And we might get more passing volume here than we did with the Chargers, who were, very, very low in total plays and dropbacks last year. So we might only need 80% of Ladd McConkey efficiency or something, which is still a lot. That's definitely still a lot to ask. But I wanted to bring Kyle Williams up because I would guess that he is on waiver wires basically everywhere.
Yeah, Kyle Williams is on waiver wire because so it's an interesting comp. I think for me I'd be maybe a 6.3 on my scale, and it sucks to say that because I love Kyle Williams' tape, man. I thought it was one of the best. I thought he was one of the most underrated receivers in this class. I didn't really understand his receiver ranking. I guess it was dependent on the fact that some people maybe thought he could be a slot only at the NFL level, and that always hurts draft stock at the NFL draft. And maybe that's the case, but I think he'd be a damn good slot only. And what props him up for the Ladd meter is the quarterback. I don't quite think Drake May throws with the level of anticipation that Justin Herbert does. And that's what these Ladd type, these Kyle Williams types receivers really bank on. It's why with Cam Ward, he had some special moments as well when he was at Washington State, because Cam Ward throws with great anticipation. I think May is definitely an anticipatory thrower, but just not quite at that level. On one hand, Jacob, I'm enthused by the fit. Josh McDaniels has done a good work from a fantasy standpoint with slot receivers. On the other hand, if it's the Patriots way with Vrabel there, it's like, when does a rookie actually break through from a Patriots way standpoint? I don't know if that's the case with Vrabel. He's gotten a second round as a coach right now. So in the 6s for me, let's settle at 6.2.
I think that's great. That's all you could ask for. Ladd McConkey was unbelievable last year, man. I mean, after watching every Ladd McConkey target, I freaking compared him to Antonio Brown, which I've literally never done.
Yeah, I've heard you make that comment now twice. That's a big one.
Like that, to be above 5 on the Ladd McConkey scale is pretty bullish. Definitely keep an eye on Kyle Williams. This year's Puka Nacua, we have to do it. We have to ask this question every year. Dan, we've got Isaac Tesla, of course. late round rookie, selected to a good offense, and then an offense that has, moved him up. There's been a steady drumbeat that he's a good fit with the team, identifies kind of with the team's identity. And then there's the move of Tim Patrick. The last chess piece would be if there was an injury like Cooper Kupp had, to really open things up here for more targets, because that's where we're at with Tesla. It's what's he going to get? 4 targets per game? You basically have to get a touchdown. The key difference between him and Puka is that Puka had great collegiate per route data. On a per route basis, he was very, very productive. That was not the case for Tesla at Arkansas, because he came into this weird offense that was already established and had very clear ways they attempted to move the ball. And so he just really was not part of it. He was extremely productive before that, but it was a small school, FCS, not even, I don't even have that data. So we'll start with him. Actually, yeah, let's leave the suspense in the air here. What do you think about Tesla before we get to the other players?
So I think about how you can become the next Puka Nacua, and not to toot our own horn, or for in this case, more specifically, not to toot Jacob's horn, but I will, because why not? What we mean by that is early on Beyond the Box Score, when Jacob and I were doing just the Monday show with Adam Azer, Jacob was all in on Puka Nacua right after that first week, and said to even, I remember you suggesting to blow basically all your waiver budget on this player. And you were right. You had a conviction on him, and you were damn right. I still kind of have a little bit of remorse from the fact that Steve Hall is an avid listener of yours and ours, and he got him for 73% of the budget in our league, and I was a little lower, in the 60% range. Still kind of mad about that, but that's what we mean by the next Puka Nacua. And to be that, Jacob, so much to me has to come into play. You have to be a great talent, you have to be in a great offensive environment, and uncertainty on the depth chart has to unravel in front of you, as it did for Puka and the Rams. As I look through the list of players, I don't want to spoil anything else. There really is only one player who fits this billing for me.
Is it Tesla?
It's Tesla. No one else really fits it at all because of the offensive environment issues. But the offensive environment is not an issue here for Tesla. It's quite the opposite. And so it's going to take injuries, just like it did for Puka Nacua in front of him on the depth chart. It's going to take, you're moving up the depth chart unexpectedly. But from a talent standpoint, I've seen the clips you've put up, and I didn't really watch a lot of Tesla at Arkansas at all. I'll just be honest. I don't have time to get to every single player on tape, but I've watched what you've put up of him in the preseason, Jacob, and I like the way he moves. And I think the Lions like the way he moves too. And I think they feel like he is somebody who was held back, just like Nico Collins was, by his offensive environment at the collegiate level. Nico Collins was wildly held back at Michigan. Then he dominated the Senior Bowl, and he's dominated in the NFL. I'm not comparing those two players, but I do like the way he moves at his size, and it is somewhat intriguing to see. And I don't even know if he's limited the way people think he is to just a slot-only role. I think he can be a boundary player for them. I think he can go inside and outside. So to me, he's the only one who comes close to fitting it. He's Puka Nacua again. This is kind of similar to what I said with BTJ. It's going to be hard to find another, but I'll go 9-2.
Let's go. Yeah, they have a cool receiving room here. They can move all these guys around. This preseason, they've done a lot of different stuff with Tesla. I think they've used him out wide a lot more than in the slot, honestly. But he has gotten slot work too. I'll give you a hot take here. We're doing our bold takes and flag.
Before we do that, I do want to correct something. I made a mistake. You were in on Puka Nacua way before the week 1 breakout. So I just want to make that clear.
That's true. Our original Rookie Jim's show was in, I think, May or something.
Yes.
And I'm I don't know anything about this Puka Nacua guy, but his per route data is
insane.
So, Puka, what the hot take was going to be, tomorrow, I wanted to say this again. Wednesday show is going to be bold takes and flag plants. And I might just have to make one of them Isaac Tesla. I don't know. Or maybe I'll just make it right now and then save even more for tomorrow. I'm going to say Tesla has at least 6 receiving touchdowns, which is what Puka Nacua had as a rookie in total by the Lions week 8 bye.
Wow, let's go.
And people are just losing their minds.
Let's go.
I had somebody go so deep in the weeds, trying to get into semantics with me on Tesla and the comparison to Puka. And it's it's fair. I love that you want to flesh out the nuanced ideas together and get into all this nerdy stuff. That's great. I don't mean to be a jerk. But eventually it's I had to just concede because it wasn't worth the time. It's I'll say it. I don't think Tesla's going to have 1,500 yards this year. Okay, you're right. He's not the same kind of player as Nacua. The situation's not the exact same. But he could get a ton of touchdowns. He could. and maybe he gets yards, maybe he gets targets if there are injuries or something like that. So yeah, I think he's the most likely to be Puka. But these other ones are interesting. And the next three are all players who had really good per route data.
Sure.
Torrey Horton had similar per route data to Puka, like truly only like 10% off or something like that. Absolutely cooked at Colorado State. I'm really, really excited for him. We don't know exactly what the role is going to be. He, like Puka, needs to overcome Cooper Kupp to be a fantasy breakout. But if the offense is good and highly efficient with all the play action, pre-snap motion stuff that we love being brought in by Clint Kubiak, and Torrey Horton is the just absolute baller that his film and data both suggest that he was in college, and his preseason film was awesome too. He's just electric. He's so hard for people to keep up with. I'm really, really excited about him. I think he has an outside shot at being just a massive year one breakout that nobody really saw coming.
Torrey fits it more than Tesla in some ways, right? Like, we have these massive discounts on players like Torrey Horton and Bill Krosky-Moret because they didn't have that final season, or they've been injured, or in Krosky-Moret's case, it was like an eligibility issue. And that drops them down the NFL draft board, which drops them down the fantasy draft board, and they become deeper sleepers. And when I watch Horton after the catch, I think that one play you showed me is like just eye-opening with his ability after the catch. I honestly think he could be one of the better athletes in the NFL from a size speed standpoint, just from watching him in the open field. And so he fits it from that standpoint, right? Like Nacua had the injuries, and there was part of his profile that people didn't like. But for me, again, to be the next Puka Nacua, you have to be in an amazing offensive environment, because not only the Rams had Stafford, who I think is one of the most talented throwers in the NFL, McVay, who's one of the best schemers. It's also such a concentrated offense. Like, they're designing plays to get him the ball all the time, Puka Nacua. I don't think that's going to happen for Horton. I don't like the offensive environment. I don't believe in Sam Darnold or that offensive line, despite loving Clint Kubiak. So for me, this is more of a 6-6.
He's actually closer to Ladd McConkey. As you were talking about him athletically, he does some of the crap that Ladd does, where he like is seemingly moving full speed and then just like stops on a dime and watches somebody just like slide past him. Like, I've seen Torrey Horton do that multiple times. And then the other thing is it's this play action offense that creates awesome efficiency. The only reason he's in this Puka comp is because he's a late round guy. And so we're looking for like the round 5 out of nowhere guy. I absolutely love the poll in the chat. Is Jacob crazy? How does that not have 100% yes votes?
I'm laughing at that. I'm also laughing at producer Josh, who said, "Is Jacob paying you to say this right now?" And Jacob said, "Believe me, I do not want my horn tooted live on air." Just so funny. I can't use that. I have to retire the toot your own horn thing. I don't love it. It sounds weird. So we'll move past that stuff.
Please do not toot my horn.
No more horn tooting on this show. I promise that. Let's get to a couple other guys you had in the mix as potential. Dante Thornton, player on the Raiders. What are your thoughts on him? How does he profile as a possibility for you?
I mean, I don't even think he's going to play very much. He's one of these players who was asked to do a lot this preseason to kind of test it out. I don't think it went very well when they took the training wheels off. It felt like he just kind of crashed. But he did have one really awesome touchdown catch. The reason he's in this conversation is because he's a late run guy who had crazy per route production. I believe he had the best per route data in the class. If not, he was second. And it just he never got a full-time role. And so if you want to just blindly bet on that, on per route data, then he looks sort of similar to Puka. I don't think he's anywhere close to a refined player who can win in a lot of different ways. He's just a vertical speed threat. And even then, that might be a question of, can he track the ball effectively? I know you had that throw from Geno that bothered you. I totally get that. But he might be good as a vertical threat, man. He's freaking 6'5", runs a 4.3 flat. And Geno Smith can deliver consistently and will deliver down the field. So he's someone to know. I do think Amari Cooper probably blocks him. But maybe he beats out Trey Tucker. Who knows?
Fortunately for me, Jacob, he's a 0.6 on my Puka Nacua scale. I think to start, all the per route data can be thrown out because he's playing in Josh Heupel's offense, which just eliminates the importance of any per route data. I think it eliminates all stats and the importance of all stats. Jalen Hyatt, a lot of players have come from that system and just can't get it going at the NFL level. It's just very advantageous for the wide receivers and for everyone for the passing game. I start with that. I second it by saying I don't like the offensive environment for Puka. I love Geno. You love Geno. Film lovers love Geno. I don't think this offense is going to throw the ball a lot. Maybe the defense will change that, but man, I don't think the tempo, the pace, it's not going to be what I at least don't think it's going to be what Chip Kelly has done in the past. I think Pete Carroll runs the show there, and Pete Carroll runs a grindy style game where he wants to win with possessions and he wants to win games by a field goal and just by being smart enough with the possessions, smarter than the other team. So don't like the environment. Mostly just don't like the talent at all, though. It's mostly a talent issue for me with Thornton. I don't project him to be a great player at the NFL level.
Yeah, just didn't want to mention him because he does have crazy per route data.
It should happen. Per route data, size, speed combo. It's all good, I think, until you actually watch the tape. At least in my mind.
I also just wanted to talk about him because people are asking me about him all the time because of the size, speed stuff. So I wanted to just give him
he looks great.
Bit of time. The last one here is Harold Fannin Jr. Could he be this year's Puka Nacua? Okay. What the hell are we talking about? The best per route data that you can find around.
Can't beat his per route data. It's unbelievable.
It's ridiculous. I did some comparisons of him to Trey McBride, who also played at a small school, and he just crushes him in everything. And even the athletic testing, any of the athletic testing that McBride did, Harold Fannin was better. And people think he's just not a good athlete. I don't think that's true. I think he just doesn't quite fit into the box of what we normally want at tight end. But he might be a different player than that. If we're looking just for upside, the case would be that he's not just a tight end, that he can move around and do different stuff. They've had him in the slot and even out wide winning, on his touchdown catch. That was just a post from the outside this preseason. And so if he's able to translate what we saw in college to the pros, that could be a really productive player. He's in an offense that has a good coach. And if there were an injury to David Njoku, or even if there were an injury to Jerry Jeudy, I think that either of those would help Fannin, potentially elevate him to being really fantasy relevant. If it's Joe Flacco under center and this team passing a lot, by the end of the year, if it's not Flacco, it could just be awful. But I think there's a chance that early Fannin, surprisingly, is relevant and he's available in most leagues. He's more of just a dynasty stash in people's minds right now.
No, this. I mean, I'd love to. I was a big Fannin player. I'm going to go 6'2" here. I think he has some similarities to Puka in a lot of ways, and I do like this past game with Flacco. I think Flacco was one of the only, Flacco was one of the 8 players to throw for 4,000 over his last 17 starts. It's insane. He actually generates offense. He can process the field. He's big and he has a big arm. A lot of these quarterbacks can't even process the field to any degree necessary to have a successful pass game and keep it on time and in rhythm. Anyway, as far as Fannin goes, the one thing that holds me back, Jacob, is that I don't trust the design as much for him. I know that the offense was designed to get Puka the ball. Stefanski has done some 2 tight end stuff in the past, but I don't trust where they're at now from that standpoint. So I talking it over more, I'm going to drop it even more. I'm going to go 4.8.
I'm intrigued about the design. Tommy Rees, I believe, is the coordinator, and he did a lot of great tight end stuff at Notre Dame. And they've talked a lot about using him as this queen piece, moving him around and everything. And if there were an injury to either of those top 2 guys, I do think that he would become a prominent part. I dug into Stefanski's offenses a lot this year in relation to Cedric Tillman. And I think his plan basically is we want to get the run game going. They've talked about that a lot. We'll see now that they maybe don't have Junkins or whatever there. But they want to get the run game going, back to the man gap stuff and just being able to threaten people that way and then build everything off of that with the play action. And that's what his offenses have been, is funneled play action to 2 players, normally an underneath guy and somebody working the deep intermediary of the field. Lately, it's been Njoku and a receiver. It was Jeudy last year.
Sure.
And then you've got Tillman, who doesn't get hardly anything designed to him. They just kind of are go win, if you win and we don't have our first couple of reads, maybe you get a target.
Right.
So if Jeudy were to go down, all that is to say that I don't know that Tillman would step into that. Maybe he would. Maybe they would get more designed, deep play action looks to him or something. But I do think Fannin could do some of the intermediate play action stuff, some of those deeper, horizontally breaking routes off of play action. And Flacco would hit him. Even Flacco's talking about Fannin, So I think he could be relevant early in the year, more than people realize. I don't know if he's somebody.
I think that's fair. I just have
waiting on.
Yeah, I don't think I would, on a meter of could he be relevant to your fantasy rosters, I would put him higher. It's just Puka. It's a little bit more. It's tough.
I guess that's fair. All right. Who is this year's Brock Bowers, Sam LaPorta? This podcast's vote is Colston Loveland. We've talked about it in depth. The very first podcast we did, if you listen to that, we talk about it within the first 15 or 20 minutes. If you check out the podcast that has per route primer on the thumbnail, it says this stat helped identify Puka Nacua and Nico Collins as breakouts. We talk about him at the very end of the show in a lot of detail. Who has the most upside of the rookie tight ends? I do think it's Loveland. I think ultimately you're pretty limited in what you might get at the top end in Indianapolis for as good as Tyler Warren has looked this preseason. Maybe he makes up for that with a lot of rushing and random stuff like that, scoring touchdowns as a QB sneaker or whatever, Tyler Warren, who knows? But if it's just like pure and simple, who can go out there and be a real good receiver and put up a lot of receiving points at tight end, I think Loveland is your best bet. I think he really could have the Sam LaPorta type of season. The other one to consider here is Terrence Ferguson, LA Rams.
You love Ferguson.
They love Ferguson.
They
First pick in the draft for the Rams. This team has been linked to tight end Brock Bowers, Colston Loveland, wanting to get a move tight end integrated into what they do. They just moved on from Cooper Kupp. Sean McVay loves Cooper Kupp like a son, and he just is like, I'm good, where it's time to move on. Who's filling that role? Tutu Atwell is not a similar player at all. Maybe Jordan Whittington is doing some of that stuff, or maybe it's this guy, maybe they've been envisioning the transition from Kupp and it involves a move tight end in a big way. And that's why they keep trying to get it. And now they got it. They were willing to take him in round 1. It sounded like they got him at the very beginning of round 2 as their first pick, and Les Snead and McVay both looked just thrilled about it. And he looked awesome when he finally got on the field this preseason. So Tyler Higbee is the only thing that stands in the way. I don't know how many targets are really going to be available with Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams both there. Puka Nacua hasn't been healthy for a full season yet. Devontae Adams is aging. It could be a good offense, and this could be a really talented player, and there could be some kind of plan to use him. So I definitely think he's worth mentioning. Is he going to have the Brock Bowers season? Probably not. Probably like a 2% chance of that happening. But he's definitely a name to know because he's available. He's not drafted.
Ferguson is hopefully going to be everything I hoped Luke Musgrave would be, just healthier and can move in that same vertical fashion, chewing up ground and being that seam threat, but also that mover post catch on a horizontal plane that is better than you expect. And as far as the Brock Bowers meter goes, I'll go 0.002. I just think Brock Bowers is a generational talent. I wouldn't want to compare anyone to him. And also the target volume will never be what it was. But on the LaPorta scale, 6-1. I can see him having a LaPorta type season. Yeah, man. You brought up the case. Like when McVay finds players he likes in the passing game, he designs the system to get them the ball, the scheme to get them the ball. He doesn't have a scheme where players fit into it. That's what I really like about McVay. He did that with Puka, obviously, and he's done that in the past with other players. So that could be a player that he designs offense for. So I like it. I think it's a good call.
Good stuff. What a show.
And just rookies, by the way. So I see some people in the chat who are like Brenton Strange. We like Brenton Strange a lot, but he's not a rookie, so he doesn't qualify in this. The one final guy I want to put on your radar is a player I like more than I think you liked at college level. I don't remember how you came out on him, but Trevor Etienne, I really did enjoy his tape. And the way he runs, his speed. In Carolina, yes, Rico Dowdle's ahead of him, and so is Chuba Hubbard, but that's just an interesting guy to keep in mind. Very deep player. But other than that, I think we covered a lot of the rookies we wanted to get to today and some of the ones we already discussed on past shows. Thank you so much for tuning in to Beyond the Box Score. And thank you so much for supporting us by hitting the like button, leaving a comment. Please tune in this week. We'll have some fun stuff coming up. I'm really excited for Wednesday's show tomorrow. Bold calls and flag plant players. And we're going to get to more listener questions, which I promise. So keep it locked and loaded. Have a great rest of your Tuesday, and we'll talk to you soon.